To me, I think the most impactful thing is little boys and girls who are like, we want to do that one day. How did you do it? And I was like, just be you. Be you. That's the most important thing, and work hard. And so to see your face up there and for people to kind of ask how you got there, it's meaningful, it's impactful, and that's why I just want to be a positive light in our culture.
Yes. For most of last season, Caitlin Clark watched from the sideline while her quad, her groin, her ankle, all of it, refused to cooperate. And Sophie Cunningham watched from even further away after tearing her MCL and spending months just waiting to get cleared to run again. That waiting ended at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and it didn't end quietly. The Indiana Fever walked into New York Liberty territory, beat a team most people already handed the 2026 championship to, and did it by 18 points. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham return in the amazing Indiana Fever win against the New York Liberty. Let me know down in the comments below what you think the Fever should do to win the championship this season. And it's been a whole lot of Caitlin Clark getting into it. 5 points. I like the aggressiveness she's been playing with right now. And Sophie Cunningham showing us she still got some shots. She's knocked down 2 threes, but Caitlin Clark's facilitating passing and off. Caitlin Clark played 13 games in 2025. Not 13 good games out of a full season. Not 13 games before a planned rest. Just 13 games total because her body kept breaking down on her. And every time she tried to get back, something else pulled her off the court. The quad went first, then the ankle started giving her trouble, and then the groin injury in July ended everything. That's not one bad break. That's a season that kept sending her back to the training room over and over until there was nothing left to push through. Not a ton of nerves, just like get out there, run around. You know it's going to be probably a little sloppy here and there for both teams. That's kind of what preseason games are about. You give everybody some run, you figure out what lineups work, what don't, and everybody's just trying to get their footing again. And same goes for me too. So I think obviously can rely on the USA basketball stuff that I did, and that experience of getting back out there. And, you know, my body feeling good, and bring that into today for sure. Clark talked about it after, and what she described wasn't a clean recovery with a fixed end date. It was this cycle of nagging injuries stacking on top of each other. And she admitted that playing with her mind, even more than a single serious injury would have, because she'd try to come back, and then something else would flare up. There's no mental reset button for that. You can't just decide to trust a quad that kept failing you or push off an ankle you've been babying. For weeks, Sophie Cunningham didn't have the stacking problem. Her MCL tore, and that was it. Season over. No ambiguity about when she'd be back, because the answer was simply not in 2025. An MCL tear doesn't just hurt. It changes the mechanical stuff your body does without thinking. How you plant your foot coming off a screen, how you cut toward the ball, how you load up to fire a three-pointer in rhythm. Cunningham's whole game runs through those movements. And she spent the better part of a year relearning how to trust a knee that had been structurally damaged. I've been dying to say this. It's finally game day preseason. We're here in New York. Oh, we're healthy. Huge. It feels so good to be back. If you have an extra like 5 to 10 seconds minute, go ahead and cover our team in prayer. Cover our league in prayer for a healthy, fun season. Can't wait. See you guys there. While both of them rehabbed, the Fever kept playing, and the team that looked like it was building towards something real in 2024 suddenly had to figure out what it was without 2 of its most important players healthy and available. That's a hard thing to watch when you're the one sitting out, because you're not resting. You're not on vacation. You're in the training room grinding through the same exercises every day while the season moves forward without you. And the question you can't stop asking yourself is whether your game will actually be there when you get back. For Clark specifically, that question was about her range, her pace, her instincts, the stuff that makes her Caitlin Clark rather than just a good point guard. Coach Stephanie White watched her through all of it and noticed something by the time 2026 preseason arrived. Clark carried herself differently, played with a kind of joy that White said was visible from the sideline. Down low, hands it off to Clark. Clark, being guarded by Gardner, puts the floater up and rattles it in. The first thing Caitlin Clark did with the ball at Barclays Center was drive into traffic and float it up off one foot. And if you've been around basketball long enough, you know that shot tells you everything you need to know about where someone's body is at. A floater isn't power, it's touch. And touch is the first thing that leaves you when your quad isn't firing right or your ankle is still somewhere between healed and not quite. Clark's floater dropped, and somewhere in the Fever fan base, people started breathing again. Played, obviously, USF basketball was your excitement, that your first game for you in 9 months. Super excited. I think like coming in here, obviously this isn't a real game. I understand that, but that's how we treat it, like a real game. So I think anytime you get to put on your uniform and lace up your shoes, like you don't take that for granted, especially having come off of last year. And you know I didn't really get to do that very much. So I think for me coming into this game, just a lot of excitement, not a ton of nerves. Just Barclays Center wasn't exactly a friendly room for that moment. The Liberty came into 2026 with analysts already treating the championship like a formality. And Indiana walked in there without Aaliyah Boston, who was managing a lower leg issue, and without Lexi Hull, who was dealing with hamstring tightness. Coach Stephanie White confirmed after the game that both of them would have suited up if this counted, but it didn't. So, Indiana ran with what they had against a team that came out with full court pressure, designed specifically to make Clark feel like 2025 never stopped. Clark played 17 minutes and finished with 7 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and 0 turnovers. That 0 is the number worth sitting with, because the Liberty's pressure was built to create chaos, to force quick decisions and bad passes, and Clark just didn't give it to them. White described it post-game as Clark playing with great intention in everything that she did. And you could see it on the floor. She wasn't pressing, wasn't forcing, just running the offense and finding the right play each time to knock it down. Yes, she is a knockdown shooter. She is feisty over there making the offensive foul. Clark takes the 3 and drills it. Oh my, behind the back there. And then she hit the 3. Her step-back pull-up 3, and the entire Fever fan base exhaled at once, because her range, that deep pull-up. That's the specific thing people were actually scared might not be there after months of babying a bad ankle and a sore quad. Clark finished 1 for 5 from deep overall, but she noted post-game that her misses were running long, which for a shooter coming back from injury is actually a good sign. Your legs are under you, you're just getting the feel back for distance. She also said post-game, I felt fast, so that was definitely a positive. I think I struggled in that area last year, but my body felt great. I felt like I was moving well. That's Clark telling you, in plain terms, what the floater already showed everyone watching. Mo Billings was right there with her from the jump, running the pick and roll like they'd been doing it for months. Because honestly, between Team USA and training camp, they basically had been. Billings finished with 9 points and 7 rebounds, and the two of them in transition gave Indiana's offense an early rhythm that the Liberty never really disrupted and continued to grow. And we're seeing it right there. Beautiful touch. Billings down low. Nice pass, and was able to complete it and finish. And you can see Sophie Cunningham started the game, and 13 minutes later she'd scored 14 points on 3 three-pointers. And if you understand what an MCL tier actually does to a shooter's body, you get why those weren't just buckets. Cunningham's game runs entirely through movement, coming off screens, relocating along the arc, catching and firing before the defense can close out. Every single one of those actions requires her knee to do exactly what she asks it to do without hesitation. And less than a year before this game, that knee had a structural tear in it. The first 3 she hit dropped clean, and that was her body confirming the work she'd put in since January actually held up. Back, your shoulders, your arms, your muscles. Then she replied, "Thank you, girl, I've been working on it." Cunningham puts it in again. Her third three-pointer on the Liberty weren't exactly rolling over for anyone. Hanu dropped 20 points for New York. And on paper, Indiana's bench shouldn't have been able to sustain that kind of pressure against a roster built with that much length and talent. But the Fever's reserves finished with 62 points. 62 against a super team. Coach Stephanie White stressed after the game that bench depth would be critical for Indiana when navigating a long postseason with potential Sevename series. And this game was the first. Proof that the depth she built is actually real and not just a nice thing to say in training camp. And a fever. Cunningham comes up with the steal. The bounce pass to Raven Johnson. Cunningham puts it in. That was too easy. Kelsey Mitchell and C.H. Hadori Walker-Kimbrough each dropped 18 points, tying for the team lead. And Walker-Kimbrough's scoring included 9 points during a 21-4 run late in the game that just buried New York for good. And I love the storyline too of absolutely torching, no pun intended, delivery in the playoffs last year. I'm sorry but had a phenomenal game, got the hot hand. I thought last season she really elevated her game in the lane. Tough lay gets it to fall and won. Think about that for a second. Clark's return dominated every pregame conversation, every social media post, every broadcast intro, and then 2 other players went out and tied for the scoring lead. Mitchell did her 18 points on 7 of 12 shooting in only 17 minutes. So she wasn't hunting shots. Either, she was just making the right play every time down the floor and the points came naturally. Embrace the new pieces, stay together, and they were connected. And they get that one to fall right there. Michaela Timpson added 11 points and Justine Pat, the 64 shooter still working her way into a full WNBA role, went for 8 points while showing enough range against New York's defense that opposing coaches are going to need to account for her when they're drawing up how to guard Indiana's spacing. A 64. In shooter who can pull up from deep is a real problem in a pace and space system, and Pat gave the Fever exactly that against the Liberty. Versatility, it's on the game. 16 points on the night. Don't book it for the Fever, knocks it down. Raven Johnson needs her own moment here though. 17 minutes, 8 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 3 rebounds, and 6 points. Coaches called her Go-Go Gadget Arms after the game, and that nickname isn't just fun, it's describing exactly how she gets into passing lanes that other guards can't reach, which turns New York's half-court sets into Indiana fast breaks before the Liberty even realized they lost the ball. Johnson running the second unit while Clark rests means the Fever don't lose any pace when their starter sits. And that continuity is what separates a deep roster from a roster that just looks deep on paper. Prior the seized part but swatted from Raven Johnson. She's a beast on the defensive end. Walker-Kimbrough slash. Indiana won 109-91, an 18-point blowout of the team most analysts already had penciled in as 2026 WNBA champions, and they did it without Boston and Hull even suiting up. White called the 29 points Indiana generated off 24 New York turnovers huge because that edge didn't come from lucky bounces. It came from active, disruptive defense that had the Liberty scrambling all night. 8 blocks as a team, 32 points in the first quarter alone, and a bench that kept the foot on the gas. Every single minute the starters were off the floor. Stephanie White didn't hide what she wanted from this team going into 2026. Top 3 in the league in pace. That was the stated goal. And the Liberty game was the first time anyone got to see whether the roster she built could actually run at that speed for 40 minutes against real competition. All right, y'all. Good job. Okay, good job. Day 1, game 1. I thought our energy and our effort was really good. But overall, y'all, it was a really good effort, okay? A really good effort. I'm pleased with the way that we went out there and battled. So good. Be proud of yourselves. Okay, here we go. Together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Together. Pace as a strategy only works if your personnel can sustain it. And White knew that going into free agency and the draft. You need guards who push before the defense sets up, forwards who sprint the floor instead of jogging to their spots, and a bench that keeps the same tempo when the starters sit. Clark confirmed the tactical side of it before the game, saying that the more she stands around waiting for the ball, the more it lets defenses get the matchup they want against her and Kelsey Mitchell. So, the movement isn't just energy, it's a weapon. Constant motion off the ball stops defenses from settling, and once a defense can't settle, everything opens up. The 8-0 run to open the game came from exactly that. Quick ball movement, guards pushing before New York could get back, forwards filling lanes and catching on the run instead of standing at half court. Monique Billings was a big part of why the front court could run like that, because she and C.H. Hatchery Walker Kimbrough aren't traditional bigs who catch a rebound and wait for a play call. White specifically noted that Billings runs the floor rim to rim and her hands are good enough that Clark can throw it to her in stride without breaking the pace. That's a different kind of front court, and New York had no immediate answer for it. When they are healthy and out there on the floor. Yes, the Liberty when Sabrina the Liberty's length and defensive awareness should have slowed Indiana down, and it didn't. New York kept scrambling to catch up, and by the second quarter the pace had already done its damage. The defensive piece of the pace strategy is what actually created the separation, though. Raven Johnson pressing Fuller, Mitchell jumping passing lanes. The Fever turning Liberty half-court sets into Indiana transition. Buckets before New York could even call out a play. White pointed to the 29 points off turnovers post-game and said it directly. Stops mean nothing if you can't grab the rebound and go. And Indiana grabbed and went all night. What this team looks like when it runs is a Fever squad that doesn't need Clark to touch every possession to be effective. Clark's threat from deep and in transition forces defenses to respect her at all times. So she creates space just by being on the floor, but the system keeps moving even when she's on the bench. Aaliyah Boston can push in transition, and Lexi Hall spaces the floor from the wing, and neither of them even suited up at Barclays Center. Keep stacking days, stack and driven to be back. Oh my God, first up of the season. I was going to do it, but I'm not going to fever up. Dubs. Before this game, the 2026 WNBA championship conversation started and ended with the New York Liberty. After this game, Indiana's in that conversation, and it's a lot harder to wave them off. Nobody's pretending a preseason win guarantees anything. Both coaching staffs will say that publicly, and they'd be right. But what actually happened at Barclays Center wasn't a close game that Indiana scratched out on a lucky night. Clark and Cunningham both returned from injuries that cost them most of 2025. Boston and Hull didn't even suit up, and Indiana still won by 18 points against the team everyone picked to win the whole thing. That's not a fluke you explain away in a film session to Mitchell fires on the three. Clark takes the three and drills it. Oh my. Wanted from Raven Johnson. She's a beast on the defensive end. Walker Kimbrough. I like it. Clark's back. That's not a question anymore. 7 points, 4 assists, 0 turnovers in 17 minutes against a defense built specifically to pressure her into mistakes. And she didn't give them a single one. Cunningham's back, 14 points in 13 minutes. 3 threes. Dropping clean off a knee that had a structural tear in it less than a year ago. Those two being healthy at the same time, running alongside Mitchell, Walker Kimbrough, Raven Johnson, and Billings. That's what Indiana's ceiling actually looks like, and New York got a full view of it. The question now isn't whether Indiana can compete. It's how far this roster goes when the regular season starts. And every game counts. Chemistry builds fast when the personnel fits the system. And White's pace-first offense fits this group like it was drawn up with them specifically in mind, because it basically was. Clark moving without the ball, Billings running rim to rim, Johnson pressing full court with those long arms getting into everything. The Fever don't need to call a timeout to reset. They just go. Cunningham puts it in. That was too easy. Timmons creates space and drills it. He's into the three. Yes, ma'am. The Beaver are hot. Boston and Hull come back into a rotation that already beat the Liberty without them, and that's worth sitting with for a second. Hull's shooting from the wing gives Indiana another floor spacer who can run in transition, and Boston's ability to push after a rebound means the pace doesn't drop when the Fever go to their front court. The roster White built doesn't have a slow gear, and right now it feels like opposing coaches don't have a clean answer for that. Indiana's next 2 preseason games come at home against the Dallas Wings on April 30th, then against the Nigeria women's national team on May 2nd before the regular season opens. So the Fever get 2 more chances to sharpen rotations, build more of the chemistry between Clark and her teammates, and get Cunningham more minutes on that knee before everything counts. The Liberty left Brooklyn without a win and without a straightforward answer for how to stop what Indiana ran at them. And the regular season is only a few weeks away. Let me know down in the comments below what you think the Fever should do too. Win the championship this season. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen and we will see you in the next.